offering all of his insights and experience and stuff like that as well. So yeah, that will be exciting. Tim, so can you hear me, by the way, Tim? Excellent. So I think Tim can hear me.
Can Andy hear you? I'm Steve. I am just in the middle of, if I'm still muted, I am sorting out the Facebook Live. Can you hear me? Oh, wicked, cool. How many seconds?
Okay, so just to confirm, by the way, that I haven't got Tim in my ear. No, okay, yeah. So Tim, awesome. I think I've got you now. So yeah, welcome to the Tuesday Tune In.
Wow.
Just gonna be, we have it's not unusual to have some technological hiccups. So this is what we're having now. But of course, you're in the business of things not going right, and so this should be just another day in the office for you. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us on the Tuesday Tune In. It's great to have you.
No problem at all. It's lovely to be here.
Excellent.
Yeah, so thanks, Tim. Tim. And apologies, I think we're live on Facebook now, but I'm going to have to, because we're on Facebook, Dave, and just because we're on Facebook, we do have to say for everyone on Facebook, I'll be live, because I know Ramona will actually kill me if I don't do it. But yeah, if you have just joined us, yeah, as Dave said there, we were live on Instagram, but the Facebook bit wasn't working. So apologies on that. But yeah, Dave, I know you give a little bit of an intro there to Tim, right? Around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so welcome, Andy. Doing it up. But yeah, no. So I've just basically given everyone a little bit of insight into what today's going to be about. And basically, this is about one of the most important questions that we get asked before anyone goes on a trip. Ironically, it's often the one that people leave to last minute, which is what type of insurance do I need? Do I need an insurance policy? And we always say that it's one of the most vitally important parts of your trip. In fact, it's a stipulation to go on our trips that you have to have the right insurance policy. But, you know, I don't work for an insurance company, and I've not personally had to make a claim. So my advice perhaps is going to be relatively limited. So what we thought we'd do, we bring Tim Riley from True Traveller along. He's going to tell us a bit about himself, a bit about his insights and knowledge of the insurance industry, and hopefully going to answer your questions as well. So all of you guys are going to be fully prepared. So and
great stuff,
now
Dave.
We are all brought up.
Nice, good man, good man. Yeah, if you have joined us, apologies, we're a few minutes late. We're just trying to sort out some tech. Do let us know if you have joined. I can see a few of you joined. I can see Bry, I can see Shona, Ramona, Diane, Jim, Jane, Gary. Yeah, a little comment, guys, if you've just joined us, and if you have joined us as well, as Dave just said, because it's around insurance, do drop some questions in, obviously for us and Tim to chat about. Yeah, just around everything to do with insurance, you know, altitude insurance, especially as people are starting to go on trips. You know, we thought it was an important sort of subject to sort of chat about, because you're going to be getting insurance very, very, very shortly. But right, Tim, are you there?
I am indeed.
Hey,
I'm here now. I'm here now.
He's here now. Well done. And thanks for dressing up as well and putting on a tie for us, mate. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I have actually already explained to Andy and Dave. I'm in a tie because I've been invited to Kensington Palace tonight for the Wanderlust Travel Awards, which I'm just there as a hanger-on. They don't give insurance companies awards. A little bit about me. Am I an insurance underwriter? No. I'm MD of True Traveller, and we're what's called an intermediary. So we have an insurance company sitting behind us, and we basically put the policy together, and then we market that policy. We do our own claims in-house at True Traveller, but our assistance service, who you'll phone up from the top of a mountain, hopefully never, is done by AXA, who are our insurer. A bit about me. Have I been in insurance? No. When I left school, I joined the army for 4 years. After I joined, before then, one summer, I worked for a specialist tour operator. After I left the army, I joined Trailfinders, and I was in the travel business for a long time, and ended up at TUI Travel. Then we started True Traveller, and we were selling tours as well as insurance, but the insurance is more popular than the tours. So that's how True Traveller came about.
Excellent. And you've actually done Everest Base Camp as well, Tim?
Yeah, done Everest Base Camp when I was in the 1980s. There were no helicopters then there. Only the Nepalese army had them, and they were only Bell Hueys, and they couldn't get to that sort of altitude anyway.
Yeah.
So if you were in trouble, you had to walk down or get carried down.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet that was quite cool though, because I bet certainly the villages and the infrastructure was very basic back then.
Well, it still is in areas, but no, essentially there was a lot less trekking then. It was more hardcore trekkers who went there then than there is probably now. It wasn't so much a bucket list type thing. So yeah, I mean, it can get very busy at EBC at certain times of year, but it never used to get that busy that it can do now. But yeah, there was no infrastructure. Obviously, there's no mobile phones. There wasn't a mobile phone anywhere when I went. So only the big ones in London were just appearing on the streets. There's big bricks that people carried. So yeah, you had to go and it's still keeping to trekkers' rules. Go in a group of 3. If at all possible, because somebody's got to go and get help and somebody stays with an injured party. That rule really hasn't changed. And I think possibly then people kind of took it on their own pace. There is a problem with some of the sort of independent trekkers in Nepal or local companies in Nepal that they'll set up a very cheap price but race you to Everest Base Camp, and with all the problems that can cause people.
Yeah, nice. We do say one of the most important, and I think there's a little delay between me and you. So
really?
That's why there's a gap, and I talk, and then it happens. So we're gonna have to try and
Dave.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. But it is interesting. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that we've always said is it's just as important to choose the right operator as it is the right policy as well. This is why this coming together here, Tim, is like a perfect storm of.
It's certainly been an interesting time, isn't it? I suppose one of the reasons personally, even before I set up Evertrek, I used True Traveller. You were a travel company before, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was for me. I kind of felt, I'm going to use it. If you used to be a travel company, you know how it works and the intricacies of certainly trekking at altitude, which is inherently, can be dangerous. And things do happen. And I thought, well, cool. If they've been a travel company, I'm going to go with them. That was what I. And obviously, I've used you guys, for most trips ever since. But what made you change over then from a travel company to insurance company? Was it just
well, to be honest with you, the Civil Aviation Authority, our good friends with our ATOL, didn't like the amount of travel insurance premium going through the books, and they basically accused us of cooking the books to try and support the business, or they thought we were taking travel monies and paying insurance, and it just got too complicated, even though we were operating trust accounts and everything else. So we took the decision, actually, let's shut down the travel side, and so we did. We had to, really. It was that complex. I mean, it was getting a bit nutty because probably 80% of our income was coming from travel insurance, only 20% from tours at that stage. We just, for whatever reason, the insurance side just went through the roof.
Yeah, mad. With that, sorry, I was trying to pause then, Dave, because I know there's a delay, which is a bit weird. Well, look, we've got some questions already around the insurance, and I know, the big ones, around kind of age, costs, things like that. Dave, what would be the big 3 questions that I know we usually cover?
So I think our 2 most popular trips, Everest Base Camp and Kilimanjaro. So I think we'll start with those 2, and perhaps the question I get asked by probably 80% of the people that book on is, what type of policy do I need? Is the travel insurance policy that comes free with my bank account good enough to get me safely to the top of Kili or reach Everest Base Camp and help me in the event of an emergency? So I think that's probably the number 1.
Okay, I'll have to sort of preamble this by saying that we are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, so I can't give advice, but and I can't speak specifics about anybody else's policy. But if you're going on a beach holiday, you'll find your bank policy is probably very good. And if you fall over your pina colada, they'll pay for the hospitalization most probably. However, once you start doing more exploratory, adventurous type stuff, they're going to have, some of them you may be able to pay extra with them, but you have to check the small print.
Yeah.
An insurance company will look at what people would normally do on holiday. It's not a normal thing to go on holidays to start trekking above 5,000 meters. So, you'd have to look around to see if there's an add-on, or go to, a specialist insurance company. Some insurance companies don't touch Nepal at all because of the helicopter scams that go on out there. But you just got to look at the small print. Usually, by going to Google and putting Nepal travel insurance or Everest Base Camp travel insurance, they're going to start popping up, pretty quickly.
Yeah. And you've made it pretty easy because I'm actually quite familiar with your website. Actually, the first time I ever got a policy was 11 p.m. the night before I flew to Lukla, because I was one of those people that went out and thought, I don't need the insurance, I'll wing it. Totally inexperienced, didn't really know what I was getting into. And when I arrived in Kathmandu and I was talking to some trekkers that had recently come down, they put the fear of God into me. No, you see people picked up all the time. You need to. I was on the phone buying one. And you do have the trekking in Nepal option. So it's pretty difficult to go wrong if you want a specific one. And the same, I believe, for Kilimanjaro is the same. Now I always get it well in advance. But that is fascinating. And I think, I suppose trekking above 5,000 meters and going into a high altitude environment where there are no cars, no roads, is not a usual thing to experience on holiday. You're not going to be able to get a tuk-tuk back down to Lukla.
No. Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Rather than the flight, but unfortunately, it's quite remote, isn't it? What about Kili then? What's the Dave? You mentioned obviously about the 2 big trips there. I mean, about Kili, what's the kind of biggest challenge with that with insurance? Because I know it's helicopter evacuation on there as well, isn't it? Sorry, Tim.
There is now on Kili. There is one Eurocopter at Kilimanjaro. It's been there for about 3 years. The odd thing about Kilimanjaro, our claims record on Kilimanjaro has always been very, very good. We've only had one large claim there, i.e. more than £10,000 in the last 7 years. And that was a fall where somebody's basically hit the head. And that was before the helicopter, so they were run down the mountain by the guides on the Kilimanjaro Express, which is the gurney with a wheel, which if you've been to Kilimanjaro, you would have seen. So no, we have activity packs in our policy, the Adventure Pack and what we call the Extreme Pack. The Adventure Pack covers trekking up to 4,600 meters, so covers the Inca Trail essentially. That's oddly what's 4,006, and we also cover Kilimanjaro with that one as well. Just Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro is 5,500 meters. But for Everest, that is the Extreme Pack, or anything else above 4,600 is the Extreme Pack. But Kilimanjaro, we actually include that on the lower level because just the claims have been good. With premiums, it is based on, the claims experience. There are some activities we sometimes withdraw from our activity packs because the claims get bonkers. And there's ones we try and introduce from time to time. But we introduce them, but we have to go and see the underwriters at the insurance company, and we have to explain to them quite literally on a PowerPoint and exactly what it is they're going to be picking up. Kilimanjaro been very good. And the helicopter, we haven't had any helicopter use. They use it mostly for sightseeing.
Yeah, that's quite surprising because given the success rate on Kili, which we know on certain routes, particularly the shorter ones, is quite low. But I didn't realise perhaps myself that given they probably just the Kilimanjaro Express down the bottom, like you said, with the metal cage gurney, is the way that they actually get most people down. Looking at it, actually, when we went to Kili, I don't think I saw a helicopter the entire time.
No, didn't.
The thing is with TMP, who basically run, the Tanzania National Park Authority that basically run Kilimanjaro, it is a massive income stream to the country. The permits, as you know, are extremely expensive to get up there, and they don't want problems. They do have 5 or 6 deaths a year on Kilimanjaro. Usually it's obviously coronaries, and some of the routes are very fast. Some of the routes are just 5 days, which is, but the guides are so good there, they do recognize the early signs of acute mountain sickness. So they'll hold people back with a guide for 24 hours just so they can possibly go on, or they'll walk them down the mountain early days. So that's why the helicopter, I feel a bit sorry for the helicopter operator because he doesn't do many rescues, but they do.
Yeah, not many at all.
They do sightseeing tours there, though. It's just been, the helicopter outfit has been replaced, and the Eurocopters which are used, they are expensive helicopters. Your average helicopter that you'll see flying around in the sky in the UK, they can't get to altitudes above 3,000 meters. But the Eurocopters, they can. One has landed on the actual summit of Everest once, but it's only had the pilot on board and everything was stripped off it. But they can merrily get above 5,500 meters.
Yeah, I read that one actually, and I think, like you said, it was stripped out to its bare metal, and they pretty much had the rotors going like full the whole time. You wouldn't dare like turn them off and like set foot. But it was fascinating, and it did make me wonder whether old Elon might actually make a high altitude helicopter that can like pluck people off in the death zone and stuff like that. I guess it's not a primary interest for him.
I think to drop people on for a selfie and then take them off. I think that's what he.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you know what? I guarantee you that'd be. I wouldn't do it, but I reckon that'd be big bucks. To get people it would completely ruin Everest. I think.
I was going to say.
For the climate.
I bet the insurance would be high as well, right?
Dreadfully for the summit. Yeah.
The summit, right? Yeah. Good man. Just a couple of questions are coming through that I think probably based on similar things we talked about, because we've talked about, Dave, you mentioned you've got your insurance like 11 p.m. kind of the day before.
Yeah.
But one question that's come through is kind of like, in terms of when would you, when would you buy your insurance before you went on a trip, Tim? Or when,
Well, you've got, on travel insurance, you've got 2 options. You've got an annual multi-trip policy, which will cover all your trips throughout the year, but they are set to a maximum amount of days. In our case, the maximum amount of time you can have away at any one time is 10 weeks of the year. And you have a single trip policy. Now, when you buy your insurance, it's basically when you book your trip, because your airline is going to hold money back and your tour operator is going to hold money back if you're going to have to cancel for an insurable reason, not because you just didn't fancy going anymore. You can't claim for that. So once you've booked your trip, then immediately take out your insurance. On a single trip policy, you'll just set your dates for your policy for the date of your actual trek. So if you are going on the 1st of March, that's when the policy starts. For multi-trip policies, though, you've got to start it today, because that's when the cancellation cover will start. On a multi-trip. So you get, if you like, free cancellation cover between now and your trip on a single trip. But otherwise, if you're going to go for a year-round trip, an annual multi-trip, take it out straight away. And then, you can kind of forget about your insurance for the year. If you're definitely going to be going away more than twice, whether it's to Europe or to the States or to Nepal or Tanzania or whatever, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be better value for you to take out a multi-trip policy.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I know a couple of people have asked around that. Is it better buying single trips or the annual one? And it's a good point, actually. So if you're going on potentially more than 2, then it becomes more beneficial financially then to get the year-round one, right?
Yeah, people also forget about, they may go to Paris for the weekend and think, I don't need insurance for that. But you have a multi-trip, it's there. And, the big insurance claims generally are road traffic accidents. And you're just as likely to get knocked down on the road in Paris as you are in London or Cardiff. So, it's important to get.
Yeah, nice.
Awesome.
I think Diane's mentioned she's doing like skiing and then going to Machu Picchu and then coming back, and then she's got Everest Base Camp at the end of the year then. Clearly, Diane, you're doing a lot of trips. which is great. But yeah, so I mean, and she has asked about what's the price difference, which I know is quite hard off the cuff, but it's definitely cheaper than there. There's 3 big trips there, right? That would be worth getting an annual one by the sounds of it.
Yes, no, it would be in that instance without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I mean, our website is vaguely easy to use. We like to think, and you can do comparisons, and you can check them out. In our experience, any 3 trips or more to get a multi-trip policy.
Excellent. We had an interesting question from one of our. He's been a long time customer of ours, Tom Massetto. So basically, he's a Greek resident and is now struggling to get hold of insurance from the UK. Do you have any insight into, because he's looking to get high altitude insurance policy to summit Kilimanjaro, but if there isn't a Greek company and stuff like that, do you have any advice for him? Is something you can assist with, or is there, do you reckon, just look at the European travel insurance companies out there?
Well, up until 31st of December, when we were part of the European Union, banks and insurance companies could deal with all of the EU as the same they would do in the UK. As of 1st of January, that drawbridge was pulled up by the EU for political reasons. So all the banks and all the insurance companies had to stop trading unless you opened up your own office in Europe and set up shop out there, which is exactly what we ended up doing. We wanted to do a lot faster. We did set up an arrangement with an insurance company in Malta, so we were going to have a Maltese office at one stage, but that all fell about because at the 11th hour, the Maltese people wanted a lot of money, more money than we actually made ourselves. So we thought that's not a good idea. So as of 1st October, we have a subsidiary company or wholly owned company in the Czech Republic. So we have True Traveller SRO in Prague, and we have staff out there who actually handle our claims because we've moved all claims in-house. So we can now sell to all nationalities of Europe. So on our website now, when you click on there, where do you normally live? You'll see a little Greek flag and Greece, so you can apply for cover on there.
Awesome.
There we go, Tom.
That's the type of question that I wouldn't have known the answer to that has now sorted Tom out. So this is why we bring you people like yourself on, Tim, because, there you go, Tom, True Traveller in Prague, they'll sort you out start to finish. Awesome. Thanks, Tom, for that question.
Yeah, very good, very good. I'm just sorry, I'm reading through the comments as well. Just while we're here as well, Lauren, I know you're on the comments. If you can put, because I know we're talking about True Traveller here. I'm not sure because we had a few tech issues regarding the link in the description. If you can put the link in the comments for everyone, that'll be awesome. Just direct to the True Traveller website. That'd be great. Cheers, Lauren. Dave, I think interesting one. We'll go back to Nepal a bit. I know we've touched on Kili there a bit. Only because I know, obviously, famously, there's been a lot of, we've seen, luckily, don't tolerate, but, with guides and the dodginess that goes on out there, Tim. I know we were talking briefly, what was it, yesterday, and even though there's not many, there's not as big numbers as normal, was it the other day you said there was like 19 evacuations in one day?
Yeah, from our local operator out there, on the 19th of October, there was 19 helicopter rescues in Nepal back to Kathmandu, and they were all hospitalised. There is only apparently about 2,000 trekkers, international trekkers in Nepal at the moment. A lot of them are travelling without the necessary permits, it's not great at the moment. And I don't think there's very few international operators working in Nepal, if any, I don't think at the moment. So it's all the local guys getting it going early. And we've heard that some of the routes are in very poor condition. Some of your guys may not know is that in the monsoon season, that's the time when some of the pathways, etc., are fixed up by the locals in Nepal, etc. So between May, June, July, August, they kind of spruce it up and make it nice again for the new trekking season, and that just hasn't happened in the last 2 years. So it's all the infrastructure is not great. And yeah, we're having reports that it's not really improving out there.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, I suppose the reason I brought it up is that obviously we've got people going out in the next couple of weeks now, which is great. These are our first trips that we're running in Nepal since when was it, Dave? March, since the guys were stuck out there.
So I think he's on the live. Brian McAlpine, who's on the live.
Hey,
Brian,
hi, Brian.
They went out there. So I think it was beginning of March 2019, and had a little 2-week extended stay courtesy of the travel restrictions, and got repatriated.
Full of beer.
I was initially I was a little bit jealous because I thought when they got repatriated back to the UK that they would just be put on a commercial airliner jet. You know, it's only going to be for them. There's going to be first class seats, but as I understand it, it was like it was like an old Land Rover Defender with a packed lunch. I think was what they had. But yeah, so it's been since March 2019 now. We've got customers going out to EBC. It's quite a small season. We're very lucky, I think, that our guys out there have been kept, in relatively good nick in terms of their working and things like that. So the guys are ready to go. But yeah, it is fascinating though. 19 evacuations in one day. I wonder because there was bad weather. I know delaying flights to Lukla for quite a while. And then I know up high, at least in the region near Mera, it made the news that there were some people trapped on there. So I'm wondering if the bad weather may have played into that. And because we all know that obviously, if you've ever trekked for any length of time in the freezing cold or the rain, it saps your energy. Combine that with altitude, maybe it all came to a head on one particular day. But that is fascinating. I might have a little Google investigation into that and see what we can dig out.
I think it does bring up the, essentially, I know this. If you've been on this live over the last 12 months, so I think we've talked about it in terms of, there are companies out there, unfortunately, and guides that, get backhanders essentially from getting you evacuated, and that has, been something working really hard to kind of stop. Obviously, we've not been part of that, but we know that's obviously a big part of it, isn't it? And these guys, I think it's no coincidence that they've struggled for 2 years and then suddenly there's a spike because they want to try and earn some more money now. I think essentially some of these guys are still around, aren't they, Tim? I mean, they're still doing this kind of thing where they're still making these, essentially getting people down even though they might not be 100% ill, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There was an investigation done about 3 years ago with an insurance assistance company in Nepal with the help of the Nepal Ministry of Tourism. And they actually had some undercover guys go with some of these local operators in Nepal who will charge $1,000 maybe for an Everest Base Camp trip. And you can't make money on that. The only way you can make money on it is to basically get a backhander from a helicopter company, which is, they'll get back $2,000, which is a lot. In the insurance game, you have to pay backhanders to get stuff done. A couple of $100 is kind of, that's okay. When you start getting to the thousands of dollars, that isn't okay. Yeah. But on one of the particular trips, they actually had a UK ex-Special Forces guy who was, dropped in there pretending to be a tourist. And this guy, they were basically poisoning the food to give them vomiting and diarrhea, which is one of the early onsets of acute mountain sickness.
Yeah, I read about that. Baking soda, I think, is what they put in the food.
Yeah. So to arrange that, so it is quite bad. And we've had people. We warn people on our website when you click the Trekking Nepal. We just give a warning that this does happen, and a lot of people say, "Oh, no, of course it doesn't." But we've had customers come back who have been helicoptered off the mountain. We paid for the claim, etc., because we can't prove it wasn't a legitimate evac. But of course, they ruined that whole trip. I mean, A, they haven't managed to get to EBC. B, their trip's being curtailed. They've lost out, mentally and physically. And the guy, I remember, he phoned me up and he was absolutely livid and he was kind of blaming us. I said, well, we did tell you it can happen.
Yeah.
We would always recommend that obviously people do book their trip with an international operator, such as yourselves, or the other good guys out there, because you have a responsibility. And more importantly than that, your contract is a UK-based contract. So, and you, to operate in the UK, have to have your professional indemnity insurance. If you get something wrong badly, you could get sued. In Nepal, there is no such law. You cannot take them to court in Nepal. The Trekking Association in Nepal, TANS, it's just a club. You pay your money to it, you get a badge to stick on your window. It's nothing more than that. And we did look into 2 years ago with some other insurance companies to say, okay, we're not going to offer insurance for anybody going to Nepal who are going to be booking with the local Nepalese company. And we put that forward to the Ministry of Tourism in Nepal, and they said if we did that, they wouldn't accept our insurance at all. So, wow, it's kind of so all we can do is
find the balance, isn't it?
Yeah,
it can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah,
I think one of the things I think we're very proud of our team in Nepal is that the head of our whole operation over there that looks after it has a really, really close relationship with a lot of the airlines, and one of his driving things was for change in the industry, because he understood that going back to when you first came, even up to now and fairly recent times, it's been a little bit of the Wild West in terms of that type of exploitation of customers and helicopters and kickbacks and things. And one thing he sought to do was legitimize the industry, and to try and set some standards. He's done other things, like the first thing he did, the long line rescue in Nepal, going back a long, long time ago. He was one of the first people that actually brought in the technology using the mountaineer Simone Moro, the Italian mountaineer who was a pilot himself, brought stuff like that in. So yeah, we are very fortunate in that we've never personally experienced any of that exploitation, but it certainly does happen. And I just want to parrot the importance of having those two things lined up: a reputable company to actually provide you with the trip, and a reputable insurance company to make sure that the other side of it is covered in the event of something dodgy. I think one thing I'm curious about is, what do you know? I'm going to ask you two questions, and they've been asked here as well by Ramona, who's asked, what's the cost of a helicopter? So say if you were to pick me up from EBC and take me back to Kathmandu, what would the cost of that chopper be on average in your experience? And also, this is my question, what's the most expensive claim you've ever dealt with?
Okay, if you pick, it all depends whereabouts you are, obviously, in the altitude.
Yeah.
But as an average, and then they'd have to take you to a hospital, and you'd be admitted to the hospital for at least one night, and you've got the medical bills to pay there as well. So generally, the whole thing to the insurer would be about £5,500. Yeah. If you were further away, if you were at a more awkward altitude, because when you're in Nepal now, there are a lot of helicopters going around. You will see them all the time when you're there, and you're thinking, wow. But helicopters, when you make the phone call, they don't turn up in half an hour. Generally, when a call is made, it's after a day's trekking. People are getting tired, and they have a fall, and they break an ankle, break a wrist, something like that. Or they start getting dizzy, vomiting, diarrhea, and they've got early stage acute mountain sickness. Yeah. Now, a responsible operator will maybe have oxygen with you, or take them down a mountain, 500 meters or so. So there's quite literally just more oxygen in the air. But it's going to be in the evening. The helicopter's not going to turn up in the evening because they don't want to fly into the side of a mountain. So the helicopter at best will take 12 to 18 hours to get to you, because the next morning they're going to be looking at all the helicopter companies and in the Trekking Association of Nepal saying, what are the urgent ones? Who's going to get out of here first? Because there might be a professional team on a mountain near a peak who may need to be rescued first. Most expensive one in Nepal, we had a guy, December 2019, the total cost of that claim was £62,416. Wow. He not only needed helicopters, he was hospitalized in Nepal for some time because when he was being rescued, he fell as well. He wasn't wearing a hard hat, so he had a fractured skull. and he had an escorted air ambulance back to the UK. So he's escorted by a doctor. So that was £62,000. So that's our
The
worst.
beast.
Yeah, it's nowhere near our biggest. I mean, to put it into perspective, we had a £90,000 claim in Canada a couple of years ago from a girl in her own apartment at night, walked downstairs to get a glass of water. She had a concrete staircase. She fell down the stairs. Ended up being a £90,000 claim.
Wow. You see, that's one of the reasons why I tell people you should just book a trip to EBC, because it might be scary, but is it as scary as walking down your own steps at night? Probably not in that case. So, and you've got that from officialdom there. But yeah, I think again, one of the things that we're really thankful of with Evertrek is that we do have legitimate connections with one or two particular airlines. So we do tend to avoid going through the whole gamut of trying to find it, because as you know, the helicopters out there, they're basically taxis and trucks, right, providing supplies, everything, and then they bring, they'll bring beer up, people down, and they'll do this all the time. We're very lucky that we've pretty much go to one, we've got connections directly to one legitimate company, so it does help us in terms of getting people quickly and legitimately get them help. Yeah, it is fascinating.
Definitely. I've got a couple of questions come in as well. Karen's asked. Sorry, Karen. Tim, what is the hospital care like out in Nepal?
Not bad, oddly.
Compared to
we've had some other serious cases in Nepal. Nothing to do with trekking. People don't just go to Nepal for trekking. We actually have people working out in Nepal who take our cover as well. We've had some quite nasty liver situations out there, but the standard of care is actually in Kathmandu is actually pretty good. There are certain countries of the world where it's not very good, and we would repatriate them to a neighbouring country pretty quickly. I'm thinking more Indochina, Cambodia, Laos. We'd move into Bangkok pretty quickly. But yeah, in Nepal, not bad. And, we can move them down to Delhi pretty quickly. And Delhi's pretty much got everything you'd need in a hospital if somebody was, colossally injured. But as I said, 90% of the stuff in Nepal is acute mountain sickness. And oddly, when you get a helicopter and you go down to Kathmandu, you jump out and you're cured. But for any sort of musculoskeletal injury, Nepal is pretty good. Actually, as is Tanzania. Even at Moshi, there's that little cottage hospital at Moshi, which can handle broken arms and legs without any problems. And the only big one we had in Kilimanjaro was to fly them up to the American hospital in Nairobi, which is the closest centre of medical excellence.
Nice.
Well, I suppose.
Go on, Dave. Sorry, mate. I've jumped in.
Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah, it's the delay again. It's really weird the time when I can jump in. I think I got it nailed, and then I go, oh, okay, fine. But no, I was going to say, I suppose, they're actually those companies, those countries, and particularly those niche areas, like Moshi is set up and experienced enough to have this, because it's going to happen every year in, year out, to a number of different people. But I had one question that I wanted to ask. Dave Rimington has asked this as well. Actually, I've jumped one, and maybe you could get Joel Palmer's. How detailed and far back should existing health conditions actually be? And does that really have a massive impact on the insurance? I think what he's wondering, because I used to work for an insurance company way back when, and what would happen is that they'd have these like essential facts of the policy. And if they were incorrect, even if they were unrelated to a claim, might invalidate the whole policy from inception. So does pre-existing health conditions, are they really important to disclose? Should everybody tell you everything going back as far as they can remember?
Basically, when it comes to lungs, heart and head, yes, you should do. Because they're the things that are going to really affect you. I've seen some insurance companies that you've got to declare the fact you broke a leg when you were a child. I mean, what's the point of that? Anything else that's more than 2 years ago, we don't care. But, heart, lungs and head. If you've got problems in those areas, and you've ever had problems in those areas, you've got to declare the conditions. We will pass through. We have an online medical declaration system on our website, which is basically bought in from an expert company, and it's a score, and the score is from 1 to 1,000. We'll accept. So if you have something really minor, like you've got asthma, that's going to have a score of 1, so you might have to pay an extra £5. If you've had cancer but you've been in remission for a few years, that may give you a score of 3, so you might have to pay an extra £30. But 5% of people have got some pretty, ongoing debilitating, ongoing disease, and that's going to knock you out of the score. And we say, sorry, we can't insure you, and we sort of point you towards the Money Advice Service, because they have a load of other insurers who are specialist insurers for people who are critically ill. Insurance can be high. I actually had my eyes tested a few weeks ago, and the optician, found out I did travel insurance. What do you do? Travel insurance. So it was a great start to a conversation. And I said, I took my dad to Florida last year, and he was in remission from cancer. He'd only been in remission for 3 months, and we had to pay £1,000 for his travel insurance. Do you think that's ridiculous? And I said, well, put it this way: if he had to go to an A&E clinic in Florida and he was in there for 4 hours, that would probably cost the insurer $10,000. So, if he's only been in remission for 3 months, that's quite early days. So, we do, obviously we have big claims, and all we can do is just shake our heads and go, damn, I hope they're okay. Our biggest ever claim was a kid knocked over on his bicycle by a truck in California, and that claim was north of $500,000.
Wow. That is
mad, isn't it? Crossing the road. Joel. Just looking at some of the questions, Dave. I know we got about 10-15 minutes left, so we'll smash through these. We've got a few that have come in. I think Joel, he's with Lloyd's Bank. He says he got cover for like winter sports, trekking cover with monthly policy. He inquired about Everest Base Camp trip. Asked quite a lot of questions, altitude, all the usual stuff, and they did say he was covered. And I might have already answered the question, but do I need to request a cover note to name EBC on a policy schedule just to risk so he's covered? I presume just getting a bit of to cover his back then, to get some written confirmation that he is covered for a helicopter evacuation, right? And would be what he would need.
Well, possibly. Lloyd's, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, but Lloyd's scheme has just been taken over by Allianz, and it was previously insured by AXA. What they don't do on these bank schemes is actually send you your details, your cover note. You've got to go onto the bank website and download it and actually have a look, which I've done myself because I'm with HSBC and I get a free one. But oddly, I take my own as well. So on there will be what you're covered for, and it will have trekking and a set altitude. Most insurers who will cover trekking will cover up to 6,000 meters, which obviously will quite merrily cover you to Everest Base Camp. They don't have to specify the mountain. We actually go above 6,000 just because of near a peak, to be honest with you. So we don't have a limit as far as if it's a trekking mountain. And you'll find that Lloyd's will include ambulances, and an ambulance can be of any sort. It can be 2 guys with a gurney, it can be your old Land Rover ambulance, and it can be a helicopter, and it can be an air ambulance, one of those Lear jets that are hired out, which will cost between here and Los Angeles about $60,000 US. You just got to download the paperwork. Unfortunately, if you phoned up Lloyd's Bank or HSBC, if they'd ever answer the phone to you, which is usually the excitement that I go through when I get hold of them, you're probably not going to find the right person, and they wouldn't send you out to cover it anyway. But if you download the small print, you'll see it.
I'll be able to see it. Okay. Yeah, nice. I hope that helps, Joel. I know, like you explained there, like Tim explained, we want to read the small print there. I would as well if it was me, because I bank with Nationwide, and I know they've got some similar cover. But I always get because I always like using a specialist, to get my altitude cover, because I know 100% that's covered. Obviously, I know it's an additional expense, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money to cover yourself, with these places, because it is adventure travel, isn't it? And I think, we all talk about different things like, hitting your head or trekking and stuff. I mean, this is adventure travel. It's, you've got to be comfortable with it before you go, knowing there's a risk, right? Because there's a risk in anything you do. Like a guy in California getting knocked off on the road, it can happen anywhere.
Never mind that, mate. Stairs in Canada. That's the
Stairs in Canada.
Like, yeah, I tell you, that's
I
nightmare.
should laugh, but yeah, I know. That's it. It can happen anywhere, but it's good to have the right insurance, isn't it? 100%.
By the way, Nationwide are stopping their insurance at the end of the year.
So really?
If you have and it only covered Europe, but if you have a Nationwide account that had your free insurance, they have announced they're stopping at the end of the year.
Oh, that's a shame. I only claimed once for them. Someone stole my skis in France once, and they paid out within like 48 hours, which was very frustrating. But anyway, so they were good. So it's a shame they're going, but never mind.
Excellent. So Linda McKenzie said that they're looking to do Island Peak in November 2002. That I know you guys provide cover for, but they're also
2002.
2022.
2022. Yeah. I need to give these a clean, I think. But yeah, and it said, but they're also looking for a policy that provides like a varied range of cover. So not specifically just trekking at high altitude, but other sort of adventure sports as well. So I'm assuming that might include like mountain biking, rock climbing, that type of thing as well. Is there such a policy that would cover a wide ranging?
Yeah, we have our activity packs, and our standard pack, which comes with every policy anyway, covers 92 activities, and that includes trekking to 3,000 meters. Then there's the adventure pack, which, just talking about trekking, is up to 4,600, but it include a lot of other activities as well. There's our extreme pack, which will cover trekking to any altitude, which includes lots of extras on there as well. High wire trapeze, if you're really into that, and high silks. And then we have our ultimate pack, which covers all sorts of nuts things. So you can choose the pack you have, and you have the cover for everything. And there's no limit. So, for example, on our extreme pack, it'll cover scuba diving to 50 meters, and you can scuba dive all day, every day, if you really want to, on your whole trip, and still have cover throughout. On scuba diving, I should point out, you shouldn't scuba dive.
I was going to say, yeah.
Getting into a pressurized cabin after scuba diving within 24 hours is not something you should do.
Definitely. I used to be a scuba instructor, so I was I was going to say, you're out all day, you're going to have some interesting after effects.
Yeah, no, we had one a few years ago. They were in Indonesia, and somebody got the bends, and we had to move into a hyperbaric chamber. And they were in Manado, which is about 800 kilometers east of Bali. And we had to get a low-flying aircraft because you couldn't get to high altitude. So basically, skimming the trees, getting this girl back to the hyperbaric chamber as fast as possible, because there is if you're going scuba diving, there's not a lot of hyperbaric chambers around. So if you are going to get the bends, you need to move to one very, very quickly. It's not one of these assistance cases that, leaving 48 hours. It's like now. So that was, we do get the cases of bends,
This is exactly why my policy is to remain above sea level. And never go under the water unless I can put my hand like that and be out the water.
I'm in agreement with you. I've only done scuba diving a couple of times in Australia, and I do remember being under the water, not that far down, maybe 10, 15 meters, and there's this massive fish called a grouper, and it's basically the same size as a mini. And this thing came towards me. I thought, I don't know what I'm doing down here. I really didn't enjoy it, but I tried it. It wasn't something I rushed.
You got to sample the menu of life, right? And you had to
go. Exactly.
Yeah, rarely on Everest does an animal the size of a small family hatchback. Maybe the Yeti or something like that might get you, but nothing else. I had one question which I think is quite interesting because we've been asked it quite a lot, and this is from Shona, who's actually done EBC. And it's about the excesses between different companies. Now, I wonder if this is either just company policy or if there's a reason for the variation. Now, we know that the excess is quite high for helicopter evacuation, but I guess that's because the cost is quite high. But some companies charge.
No. I'll tell you why it's there.
Exactly, Tim. This is what I'm getting to. Provide clarification.
Because it was me who introduced it, and everybody followed. Yeah. A long time ago, when our underwriter used to be Ace back then, on one weekend we had 6 rescues. One of which was a married couple, an Australian couple. He was rescued one day and his wife was rescued the next day. And we found out basically that people were being paid to be rescued by the dodgy trekking companies. So how do we try and stop this from happening? Well, we knew that basically the most that would be paid out by a helicopter company for the rescue would be $2,000. So we decided to put our excess at £750 because then it wasn't worth bribing somebody, and that's the only reason it's there. It's not to make up the cost or anything like that. It's purely that, and that's why it's there. It's to stop people from being encouraged to be rescued, and it did happen. We had, and the guy Ace back in those days, a guy called Andre Paul, who was the underwriter, said, that'll never catch on. But as soon as we did it, other insurance companies followed very quickly behind us. And I think some are at £2,000, which is kind of pointless because it's not the reason it's there. It's there just to make people think twice. Is it worth me taking a backhander? And of course, the best you're going to get from a dodgy trekking company is I'll go halves with you. I'll give you $1,000. Well, if we're taking $750 from the get-go, it's not worth you doing it. And that's why it's there. Yeah. No other reason.
Wow.
That is news to me. I always made an assumption that it was because the cost was high. But yeah, that actually makes sense. And I suppose it's a necessary evil in order to curb the temptation of people who have perhaps got to EBC and they say, well, do you want a quick lift down? Because
there is a bit of that, But no, it's the only reason it's there. I mean, we would expect in a season. I mean, we insure a lot of people in Nepal. We would expect to do between 60 and 100, helicopters in a season. And when it's bad weather, it can get a little bit worse. Well, it's a kind of a thin dividing line actually. Bad weather means the helicopters can't take off sometimes, or they can't operate safely. Some of them can, but the majority of them can't. But yeah, it's just if it's $4 or $5 grand and it's somebody who is ill, because you want them off the mountain quickly. If a responsible trekking company says this is more than acute mountain sickness, this is early stage HAPE or HAZE, you've got to move them off quickly, and a responsible trekking company will run them down and get a maybe 500 meters below where they are, and also to get them near a landing site, because helicopters, they can't land. It's not like when we saw the military helicopters in Afghanistan hovering on the side of a building and soldiers jumping on board, because A, were not all soldiers, and B, those military pilots, they really are extraordinarily good. So you've got to get near landing ground as well. So getting people, the big responsibility of the operator is spotting the early signs of acute mountain sickness, which is basically dizziness, fatigue, vomiting, diarrhea, and then just slowing it down. But if, as on your trips, because I looked them up, there is altitudes you do. There's only so much altitude you can go up. Once you're over 3,000 meters, you can't jump, and you've got to stay 24 hours. And if you do that, your chances are so much lessened of being, affected by AMS. Or like me, because as I said earlier, my early days were in the army, and this is in the early 1980s, and it was mandatory pretty much in the army to smoke like a chimney. So being an ex-smoker, my lungs are used to having less oxygen in the blood anyway. So I don't get acute mountain sickness. I was out in Peru about 3 years ago. I was like a mountain goat. My wife, though, she was popping Diamox and looking very ill the whole time.
Amazing.
Wow. The benefits of smoking.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ex-smoker. I'm
Ex-smoking, I was going to say.
Yeah, ex-smoker. No, I've given up now, so I'm holier than thou.
Good man. Good man. It's still a lot of questions. I know we've got about another. Let's do another sort of 5 minutes. I know we've got a few here. I think Lindsay McLeod has asked, so people who generally need helicopter evacuation still have to pay the 750 excess, and I obviously haven't been involved. I'd say obviously yes, they do.
We collect it. We collect it if it's for breathing difficulties. If somebody's had a broken leg and has to be removed, there's no excess payable.
Okay, wow. Because that was actually Nick Howard asked that. Will insurance cover for long-term costs of healthcare for any injuries sustained whilst trekking?
Not long term. A travel insurance policy is an emergency assistance policy. We're not private health insurance. So once we have secured you in a local, we will bring you back home. So we'll bring you all the way back to your local hospital in the UK. So if it's necessary, and then we say goodbye to you, and the NHS then takes over. So we're not there. Travel insurance policies aren't designed for that. It's accident and illness only.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, some good questions though. It's because it's interesting, isn't it? What questions come about when we're talking about insurance, and I know we're going into specifics now, but but it's very interesting because obviously I'm learning as well actually, just about all this, Tim. I appreciate you answering those. Dave, you got any more questions that you've seen, mate? I've just gone through the WhatsApp.
A quick look. I'm just having a quick look now. So Paul Evans has said, "Oh, you were late joining us today. That's okay, mate. It's probably a good thing you missed the beginning. Well, we were getting the tech right." So let's have a look. Who is the insurance on the call now, and what is the typical cost of an EBC trek? I guess that's almost a difficult question to answer because it depends on the individual, right? But I think I'm 38 with nothing to declare, and I think I pay about, I think it was just less than 200 quid. I think I paid for my whole policy to go to EBC. But I think it can be very.
You're looking at around about, if you're in up to 50. I mean, there is an age loading, so I've got to pay more because I'm over 50. And when you get over 60, there's more of an age loading. But it'd be under £200 for a 20-day trip to Nepal to cover EBC, etc., and a bit of time to make sure you're not getting stuck at the airport with the fog that comes down. It's under £200.
Funny enough to say that.
And the chances of anything happening, with all insurances, travel insurance policies, 95% of people don't claim, and then between 95 and 100, some are small, little baggage claims. They lost something, they broke something, so that's an easy thing. And there's about 1.5% who need medical attention, which can be a £300 bill from an A&E to 400,000.
Yeah,
nice.
Wow. Funny enough, my dad noticed the difference because he went to EBC when he was about 59, and then when he was 61. And he did wonder why the price jumped up. So now I'm going to text him and tell him, that's why that happened, my friend. You you broke a bracket. But,
I mean, it is a bit unfair because obviously I appreciate that there are some 60-year-olds out there who are fitter than many 30-year-olds. The sad fact is, though, with travel insurance, we can't give everybody a medical. When you get your private health insurance, which you pay up to £1,000 a year for, you will go for a medical at the beginning, and your insurance will say, okay, we'll do you for this and exclude that. We don't have that luxury, so we've just got to look at a broad spectrum of where the claims come in, where the risk is. So there is age loading, and we've just unfortunately got to accept it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things, isn't it? At the end of the day, with coming on a trip with us, and where insurance, you need it. If you go into high altitude, you need evacuation cover. That's why it's great that we got companies like True Traveller. It's who are very good, and as I mentioned before, I've used them personally. I got a good question from a friend of mine actually, and he is Evertrekker as well, Doug Smith. Because I kind of don't feel like I know the answer to this one. Would you recommend getting a group policy if you were going with a couple of friends?
It makes no odds. If there's 3 of you, you'll end up paying 3 times the price. So yeah, it makes no odds. I mean, it could be useful if you all got it from the same insurance company, because it kind of makes nice things quite easy for curtailment. So curtailment is if your holiday gets stopped early days. So let's say there's 3 of you trekking Nepal, one of you becomes sick, you've all got to curtail and come home early. So you'll have lost bits of your holiday. So it's easier, to be honest with you, for the claims situation if you can just prove we're all together. So sticking with the same company is probably quite useful. The only time we do group policies is if the groups are more than 10, and there is a 10% discount, but generally, pretty much exclusively, is Army who come to us. So soldiers who are doing trips to Nepal or in France or whatever, they will come to us and ask for their stuff, and they have pre-existing conditions as well. So because they sometimes have more than others because they've had musculoskeletal injuries in times gone past, etc. So it's generally Army groups who will take out their trekking insurance with us.
Amazing. I'm actually being called out at the moment, Tim, because a moment ago I said that I was 38 and had nothing to declare. That's because I forgot I had knee surgery in April. So people are now pointing out that I do have a dodgy knee, and I should be declaring that. And I haven't trekked since I've done my knee, so I haven't thought about it. But I just want to clarify.
That is
38
interesting.
with a completely exploded knee. Everything else is
well, you'll always find in most policies that there's a section that will say, you shouldn't have undertaken the trip without, permission or, from your doctor. Yeah. So we have had some claims that I don't think we've ever actually had any denied, but some people who basically weren't, if they'd gone and see their GP and said, I've got this brilliant idea, I'm going to do Mira Peak, and they're massively overweight and they've had breathing difficulties, etc., the doctor would say, really, you shouldn't do that. Think about going to a nice beach somewhere. So you've got to watch out for that. But obviously you've done trekking, etc., and you've been around a bit, so you probably aren't going to stress your knee out that much by doing anything like next year's London Marathon too quickly. But you just got to be sensible, because it's at the end of the day, to us as an insurer, it's money, and we'll get over it. As I was saying to the guys before the talk started, last year, obviously with COVID, the travel insurers in this country were just taken to the cleaners absolutely royally. And some of the bigger insurers like Mapfre, who were a massive Spanish underwriting company, they pulled out totally from the UK now. But we'll make it back in years to come. If it goes wrong on your holiday, your whole experience is going to be ruined. You may be hospitalized for some time. Your family are going to be worried about you. So you've got to make sure that, if you are going to be doing an adventurous activity or an extreme sports, just got to make sure that you're in the right place to it. For us, it's money. Yeah. We'll pay the claim, fine. But for you, it's going to be worse. I say sometimes when I'm on the call to people, and so I say, you want to make sure you don't have a claim far more than we do. So, you just got to be a little bit sensible and think things through.
I don't know about you, Anne, but I reckon that sounds like an awesome final thought of the day. Because normally we like to finish.
He usually gives us one thought.
Yeah, but I don't want to say anything else and ruin that, because I think I agree with that wholeheartedly. The insurance company will get over it. It's business as usual. But for you, it could be the once in a lifetime bucket list adventure. So make sure you get it right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, look, Tim, look, thanks for coming on and putting your time aside. It's been quite insightful, actually, just to kind of see from the other side, how things work, and I know you've obviously been in the travel industry for a very long time now, so you know a lot more than us. But it's just good to obviously to chat about it, and I hope obviously if you've watched today, I hope you've got some value out of it as well. And I know we've had loads of questions come in, some of them not about insurance, so I thought we'd leave those till after. We'll come back in the comments and we'll just answer those off. But I hope you've enjoyed it, guys, and it's been like Tom, Lindsay, Andrew, Nick, Ramona, all the usual guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, Tim, well, I'm sure we'll meet you again. I see we're down in London tomorrow, so you never know, we might pop in.
It's very good.
So much.
Okay, super. Thanks.
Excellent.
Cheers, Tim. All right. Take it easy, guys. We'll see you next week.
Guys. Bye.
Thanks.